this whole bit. Well, just give me the sign.
There's a particular kind of memory that lives not in your mind, but somewhere deeper. You're driving, a song comes on the radio, and before you can even place the title, before you can remember the artist's name, something in your chest already knows that melody, that voice, that feeling. You've been here before. This is a documentary about 10 of those songs, not obscure album cuts, not forgotten demos. These were actual hits, records that climbed the Billboard charts, filled American radio stations, and followed millions of people through their daily lives. Then, one by one, they quietly slipped away. Radio moved on, new sounds arrived, and somehow these songs, despite everything they once meant, became strangers. Today, Black Legacy Files is bringing them back. We're counting down 10 forgotten 1970s hits that once seemed impossible to escape. Songs from artists who, in some cases, you remember perfectly, and in other cases, you may not remember at all. Every entry on this list earned its place on the charts. Every entry deserves a second listen.
Our love is a flame.
Before we begin, if this kind of musical excavation speaks to you, if you believe forgotten hits deserve to be remembered, subscribe to Black Legacy Files and hit the like button right now. Drop a comment below and tell us which 1970s song you haven't heard in years but still can't shake. Your answer might end up shaping a future documentary. Now let's get into it, starting at number 10. Number 10. Never Been to Spain, Three Dog Night.
Been to Oklahoma. Oh, they tell me I was born there.
Three Dog Night is a band most people recognize instantly. Joy to the World. 1. Easy to be hard. Their harmonies were some of the most distinctive sounds in early 1970s American rock. But there's a song sitting just slightly outside their most famous catalog that deserves more attention than it gets, and that's Never Been to Spain.
But I really don't remember.
Released in 1971, the song was written by Hoyt Axton and built around a premise that was quietly absurd in the best possible way. The narrator describes places he supposedly knows, England, Spain, while making it clear he's never actually been there. That contradiction gave the lyric its charm. It was confident and self-aware at the same time.
And they sure know how to use it.
Three Dog Night took that material and wrapped it in exactly what they did best. Powerful vocal harmonies, a driving rock arrangement, and the kind of production that felt built for radio from the first note. The result was a Billboard Top 10 hit during one of the most commercially successful periods of the band's career. And yet, Never Been to Spain has spent decades living in the shadow of its bigger siblings. When people think of Three Dog Night, they think of Joy to the World. They think of One. Never Been to Spain sits just far enough outside those two giants that it became something strange. A song, the melody of which you know, a voice you recognize, lyrics you might even be able to sing along with, but a title that produces a slight hesitation.
But I kinda like the Beatles.
That's the specific kind of forgetting we're exploring today. Not erasure, something subtler. A song that didn't disappear from your memory so much as it lost its label. And once it starts playing again, it's impossible not to feel it. That's the thing about Never Been to Spain. The song doesn't need you to remember it. It remembers you. Number 9. Could It Be Magic? Barry Manilow.
Sweet Melissa, angel of
Before Barry Manilow became synonymous with adult contemporary radio, before Mandy and Copacabana turned him into one of the most commercially dominant artists of the decade, there was a song that showed exactly what kind of musician he actually was underneath the pop polish. That song was Could It Be Magic? Released in 1975, it stood apart from almost everything surrounding it on American radio. Its dramatic melody drew directly from Frédéric Chopin's Prelude in C minor, and Manilow's arrangement transformed that classical foundation into something unmistakably emotional and modern. It wasn't a simple love song. It was constructed deliberately, architecturally, around tension and release.
Let me know what
The recording wasn't an immediate explosion. It built gradually, the way a piece of drama builds, and that pacing was intentional. Manilow wasn't just writing a radio hit, he was constructing an experience. The song eventually reached the Billboard Top 10, establishing what would become his signature approach: sweeping arrangements, theatrical emotional climbs, and melodies that didn't let go.
I could love you, build my
What makes Could It Be Magic worth revisiting today is what it reveals about the artist in his earlier form. The songs people most closely associate with Manilow tend to overshadow it, but this recording captures something the bigger hits sometimes smoothed over: a rawness, a genuine reaching quality in the vocal performance that makes the emotion feel earned rather than manufactured. Manilow wasn't performing a feeling, he was finding one, and on Could It Be Magic, you can hear him searching for it in real time. Number 8. Stuck in the Middle with You, Steelers Wheel.
Well, I don't know why I came here tonight. Because to the right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Here's something interesting about number 8 on this countdown. You almost certainly know the song. There's a reasonable chance you don't immediately know the band. Stuck in the Middle with You was released in 1972 by Steelers Wheel, a Scottish group built around two songwriters, Gerry Rafferty and Joe Egan. The song had a deceptively simple quality: that almost offhand vocal delivery, the shuffling rhythm, the lyric that sounded like overheard conversation at a party where you didn't know anyone. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right.
Right, here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Here's the part most casual listeners don't know. Rafferty and Egan wrote it partly as a parody. They were poking fun at the polished, self-serious singer-songwriter style that dominated early 1970s folk rock. The joke was intentional, the playfulness was a creative choice, and then the joke worked so well it became genuine, reaching the Billboard Top 10 in America and establishing the duo as a legitimate commercial force.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, here I am.
But neither songwriter was particularly interested in the pop star machinery, and the band's momentum never fully consolidated into sustained mainstream success. Then, decades later, something unexpected happened. Quentin Tarantino used Stuck in the Middle with You in Reservoir Dogs, and an entirely new generation encountered the song in a completely different emotional context.
And your friends, they all come crawling, slap you.
So this entry carries a particular distinction. It's not really a forgotten song. The song has survived. What got lost was the band, Steelers Wheel, two Scottish songwriters who wrote a parody and accidentally wrote a classic, never received the lasting recognition their hit deserved. The song lived on. Their name didn't always travel with it. Number 7. So Into You, Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Get into me, I'm so into you.
Some songs announce themselves loudly. They arrive with everything turned up, demanding your attention from the first second. And then there are songs like So Into You, which float into a room so quietly and so naturally that you've already fallen under their spell before you realize what's happened.
So into you.
Released in 1977 by Atlanta Rhythm Section, So Into You came from a Georgia band that occupied a particular and interesting space in late 1970s American music. They blended the warmth of Southern rock with the smoother, more polished sound that FM radio was gravitating toward. The result was music that didn't feel aggressive or sharp-edged. It felt like late evening, like the volume turned down just enough, like something you put on and then forget to turn off.
Now I stand here helplessly.
The arrangement on So Into You was spacious. The guitar work was restrained, almost patient. The vocal delivery sat somewhere between confidence and vulnerability. Everything about the production was designed for nighttime listening, and it worked. The song climbed into the Billboard Top 10 and became one of the band's defining recordings. But Atlanta Rhythm Section never achieved the kind of lasting mainstream recognition that followed the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac. They were critically respected, commercially successful in bursts, and then gradually absorbed into the background of classic rock radio in a way that made their name more difficult to place than their music. Those opening guitar chords from So Into You are enough. The feeling arrives before the memory does.
So into you.
Before we move into the top 6, take a moment right here. If this countdown is bringing back sounds you haven't thought about in years, subscribe to Black Legacy Files and let us know in the comments which 1970s song lives in your memory but not on your playlist. We read every comment, and the artists you mention shape what we cover next. What's coming up in the top 6 gets even more interesting, and the story behind number 6 involves a recording that was almost never released at all.
Oh, into you, baby. I can't get.
Number 6. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, Bachman-Turner Overdrive. There is a particular kind of accident in music, the kind where something imperfect, unplanned, and unrepeatable becomes the very thing that makes a recording unforgettable. Number 6 on this countdown is exactly that kind of story. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet arrived in 1974 from Canadian rock band Bachman-Turner Overdrive, led by guitarist and songwriter Randy Bachman. The song's most recognizable feature, the stuttering vocal delivery that runs through the chorus, was not originally intended for public consumption. Bachman had a brother with a stutter, and the vocal was recorded partly as an affectionate inside joke. He didn't plan to release that version. But when the band and their record company heard the playback, something was obvious. That imperfection wasn't a flaw, it was personality. It was the thing that separated this recording from everything else sitting on the radio shelf in 1974. You couldn't manufacture that quality. You couldn't recreate it on demand. It existed because nobody was trying to make it. The single reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became BTO's defining American hit. But what often gets reduced to that one famous vocal moment is actually a remarkably tight rock recording with a guitar riff that sits among the decade's most immediately recognizable. The stutter became the hook became number 1. And a studio experiment that almost stayed private became the signature moment of the band's entire career. Number 5. Thunder Island, J. Ferguson.
I saw
There are songs you remember with your ears and songs you remember with something harder to name. Thunder Island falls into the second category. Released in 1977, Thunder Island came from J. Ferguson, a musician with roots that stretched back through several important rock projects before he stepped forward as a solo artist. The recording had every quality that defined peak late 1970s radio. Warm guitars that sounded like late afternoon sunlight, smooth, unhurried vocals, a production approach that felt wide and cinematic without ever becoming excessive. The song sounded like motion, not urgency, but the pleasant kind of movement. Windows down, no particular deadline, no particular destination.
Now every mile away and every day cuts a
Thunder Island climbed into the Billboard Top 10 and became a genuine commercial success. But Ferguson's career never developed into the sustained superstar story that surrounded artists like Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles. And without that kind of ongoing public presence, the song gradually slipped from regular rotation. It became one of those recordings that surfaces occasionally on an oldies station, in the background of a film, on a forgotten mixtape, and produces an immediate, unexplainable familiarity. That's the quiet power of songs like Thunder Island. They don't always bring back a specific memory. They bring back a feeling, a season, a version of yourself that existed somewhere in the 1970s, even if you were too young to know what the decade felt like. The atmosphere is unmistakable, and when it returns completely. Number 4. Lido Shuffle, Boz Scaggs. The first few seconds of Lido Shuffle don't invite you in gently. They grab you and start moving, and you're already halfway down the road before you've had time to think about where you're going. Released in 1976, the song came from Boz Scaggs, a singer and songwriter whose career had always resisted easy categorization. He moved between rock, soul, R&B, and sophisticated pop with the kind of natural ease that suggested he wasn't thinking about genre at all. He was simply following the song wherever it wanted to go. And Lido Shuffle wanted to go somewhere fast. The arrangement combined a propulsive rhythm section, punchy horns, rolling piano, and Scaggs's relaxed, almost conversational vocal, a voice that sounded completely unbothered by the urgency happening around it. The song was built on a character, Lido, a perpetual optimist, a man permanently on his way to somewhere better, always one step ahead of whatever consequences might be following him. The single reached the Billboard Top 20, and Scaggs's album Silk Degrees became one of the defining records of the era, a collection that demonstrated how sophisticated pop music could be when the craft was taken seriously. But as Scaggs's career continued, other songs from that same period claimed more of the public memory. Lido Shuffle became one of those recordings that people recognize the moment it begins and then spend the next 30 seconds trying to remember who made it. That rhythm section doesn't wait for you to catch up. It just keeps moving, exactly like Lido himself. Number 3. How Much I Feel, Ambrosia.
away from you. How much I live for you.
Some songs sound on the surface like one thing and reveal themselves, on closer listening, to be something considerably deeper. How Much I Feel is one of those recordings. Released by Ambrosia in 1978, the song became the California-based band's biggest American hit. At first contact, it presents itself as a breakup ballad, familiar emotional territory, well-traveled ground. But the performance beneath that surface is more sophisticated than the genre label suggests.
Give me the sign, I will be gone.
David Pack's vocal moved between two different emotional registers throughout the song. Restraint in the verses, something closer to desperation in the chorus, and that movement created genuine tension. The arrangement supported the shift, building gradually without ever overplaying its hand. The narrator in the lyric understands that the relationship is ending. He can see the conclusion clearly, and he still cannot let go. That particular kind of emotional honesty, clear-eyed grief, the knowledge of loss before the loss is complete, gave the song a weight that most radio hits of the era never reached.
And you try to make amends.
How Much I Feel climbed into the Billboard Top 5 and established Ambrosia as one of the more musically sophisticated album-oriented rock acts working in late 1970s America. Then the decade turned, musical tastes shifted, the band's presence in mainstream radio conversation diminished. But the recording remained, and when you encounter it again decades later, the thing that strikes you isn't nostalgia, it's craft. Ambrosia didn't make a forgotten song, they made a song that people simply stopped playing. There's a difference, and that difference matters. Number 2. Couldn't Get It Right, Climax Blues Band. For a few months in 1977, Climax Blues Band had one of the biggest songs in America. Today, many people who know the song couldn't immediately tell you the name of the band that recorded it. That gap between the song's success and the band's recognition is what makes this entry so fascinating. Climax Blues Band had spent years working in British blues rock, a harder, rougher tradition with little interest in commercial polish. But Couldn't Get It Right represented a deliberate pivot. The band traded much of that rawness for a smooth, groove-driven arrangement that fit comfortably alongside the biggest FM radio hits of the decade. The production was clean. The rhythm was immediately infectious. The hook arrived early and stayed.
I started searching for a bed.
The gamble worked. The single reached the Billboard Top 10 and became the band's largest American success, a commercial peak that, for a British blues band, felt genuinely unlikely. But the very thing that made the record successful also made it difficult to follow. Couldn't Get It Right existed somewhat apart from the rest of their catalogue, and without a second hit to anchor their name in American listeners' minds, the band's identity never fully took hold. The song kept moving through radio rotations for a while, and then, gradually, it didn't. One of the biggest records of 1977 became a memory, and today it occupies that specific territory where the sound is entirely familiar and the source is just slightly out of reach. If you've made it this far into the countdown, you're exactly the kind of listener Black Legacy Files exists for. Subscribe right now and hit like, and tell us in the comments which forgotten 1970s hit you feel deserves more recognition. We're reading everything. Because the number one entry on this list is a song that involves two artists from completely different musical worlds, a combination that nobody predicted, and a result that somehow worked better than either artist could have managed alone. Don't go anywhere. Number 1. Stumbling In, Suzi, Quatro, and Chris Norman. You may remember the feeling before you remember the title. Two voices, a melody that seems to have always existed somewhere in the back of your memory, and lyrics about falling into something you didn't plan for and can't quite explain. That's Stumbling In, and it belongs at number 1 on this countdown, not just because of its chart position, but because of what it represents. Two artists stepping entirely outside their established identities and creating something neither could have predicted. Suzi Quatro arrived in this collaboration as an already established rock presence. Leather jacket, bass guitar up front, a stage persona that was aggressive and self-assured. She had built her reputation on a sound that had nothing soft about it. Chris Norman came from the opposite direction entirely. As the lead singer of Smokey, he was known for gentle, accessible pop rock, warm-voiced and approachable, far from anything that would be called confrontational.
Our love is alive.
Released in 1978, Stumbling In put those two voices together in a romantic duet, territory neither artist was particularly known for, and the result was something that transcended both of their individual sounds. The song wasn't trying to be rock, it wasn't trying to be soft pop. It was simply two people singing about the uncertainty of falling in love, and the chemistry between the two voices carried it completely. The single reached the Billboard Top 10 in America and became a major international hit. Its appeal was almost quietly powerful. There were no enormous production flourishes, no complex arrangements demanding your attention. Just the melody, the voices, and the feeling of something new beginning without any guarantee of where it leads. Then the 1980s arrived. Radio changed. The sounds that had defined the late 1970s were replaced by something sharper, more synthesized, more aggressive. And Stumbling In, with its warmth and its gentleness and its complete lack of irony, gradually disappeared from American radio rotation. But play it today, and that chemistry still holds. Quatro and Norman created something neither could have made independently, a recording that was both unexpected and, somehow, completely inevitable. That's why it belongs here, not simply because it was a hit. Because it was a genuine creative accident that worked, a collision between two different musical personalities that produced something better than either brought to the studio alone.
Baby, I'll do it for you.
Forgetting a song doesn't erase what it made you feel. A melody can vanish from radio for 40 years and still be waiting somewhere in your memory, completely intact, ready to surface the moment the right chord arrives. Every song on this countdown earned its place, not in some archive or on a list, but in the lived experience of the people who heard it when it mattered. Some of these songs brought something specific back, a year, a person, a room. Others brought back something harder to name, a season, a feeling, a version of a life that existed somewhere in the 1970s. There are more of these songs, there always are. Drop a comment and tell us which forgotten hit from that decade hasn't left you, the one you haven't heard in years but still know every word to. That's the song we want to find next. Until then, keep listening. The music is still out there, waiting to be remembered.
Stumbling